Hello, Daishin.
Hi, Pam. Hi, everybody at Nebraska Zen Center and everybody online. I just wanted to check, see who's there at the Zen Center. I can't see so well. Maybe just a quick hello. Yes, I see you there. Just maybe we can say your name and so I can see who all's there.
Want to go around?
Sure. Good morning, Daishin. Benji here.
Hey, Benji. So glad you're with us this morning.
Hi.
You can't see you.
No. Oh. Hi.
Samantha. All right, great.
Morning, Daishin. Brian.
Brian. All right. Good to see you, Brian.
Hi, Daishin. It's Jenny.
Annie, all right.
This is Brooke. She's new today.
Hi, Brooke. Welcome. So glad to have you with us this morning.
I'm Pam. Vicky.
Right.
Sarah. Hi.
Hi there. Hi, Caroline.
Doug, back here in the back.
All right. Hey, Doug.
Morning, Daishin. Mike.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you.
See you too. And I'm Ian.
Yeah.
Ian. All right. Good to see you.
And you can't see me, Daishin. George is here.
George. All right. Good to be with you all. And then online, you see Max. Nice to be with you this morning. And Mark. Mark is from our Zen fields. Zooming in. Are you in Des Moines right now? Des Moines. Okay. Yeah. Welcome. Tara. Good to see you. And Ron. Good to see you. And Jeff. All right.
Start with the chant. Open the chant.
Dharma is vast and subtle.
The Dharma is vast and subtle.
We now have a chance to see this.
We now have a chance to see this.
Study this and practice this.
Study this and practice this.
May we realize this true meaning.
May we realize this true meaning.
So I would like to introduce you to, maybe you've heard this story before. It's an old Zen story, and there's an illustration of it in this wonderful text, this wonderful book that I have called Zen Speaks. So I made a PowerPoint of this particular Zen story called Alive or Dead. Oh, so if I could have the ability to share my screen, that would be great.
I think that should do it.
Yes, that did it. Okay. So hopefully y'all can see my screen. If not, maybe come a little closer. And I want to start out, first of all, I should contextualize this particular story. Last week we spoke about the doorway of repentance. And the Dharma talk I offered before, I mentioned the three doorways to Zen. One being impermanence, another being repentance, and the third one being self-improvement. So this week is about impermanence. So this particular story here roughly falls under the category of impermanence, of the reasons why we enter the Dharma. So let's take a look at this story. All right. Alive or dead? What are life and death? And as we're looking through this, keep in mind maybe a question for yourself. What would you say? How would you respond to this question? Master Dao Wu and his disciple Jian Yuan paid their respects to the family of a deceased friend. And here you see Jian Yuan tapping on the coffin. He says, "Is he alive or dead?" And the master says, "You can't say he's alive, and you can't say he's dead." It's an interesting question from the monk, isn't it? Like, why would he ask that question? Is he alive or dead? Isn't it obvious? I think we would all probably agree that if somebody's lying in a coffin and there's people mourning, like you can see in the lower left here, why would you ask such a question? Is he alive or dead? And then the response is equally interesting. You can't say he is alive, and you can't say he's dead. Why can't you say it? So the monk's really pressing him. Why can't you say it? If you can't say it, you can't say it. He said, don't push me on this. You can't say it. Why can't you say it? You'd better say, or I'll slug you. He's ready to actually hit the teacher. And we say, we see this in a lot of the Zen stories usually it's the other way around of the master hitting the student in some way. This is the reverse, where the student's hitting the master. Now, be careful here about this. We don't want to take these too literally. And it's totally inappropriate to act like that in our culture. I don't know what culture would be appropriate to act like this. But certainly in our modern times, we need to see the inappropriateness of doing this. But we don't want to ignore what's going on here either, and maybe we could find some other understanding about it based on this story. So he says, "You'd better say, or I'll slug you." Certainly this monk is speaking our mind at times when somebody doesn't give us the quote-unquote right answer. Certainly he's speaking our mind. Even if we don't do it, we might think it. Right? Don't each one of us at times feel this way? Somebody doesn't give us the answer, the black or white answer. Right? Tell me, it's got to be one or the other. And the master just simply says, if you're going to hit me, hit me. I still won't say. What kind of teacher are you? You know, and yet you won't tell your disciple? I can see him pounding his teacher.
Talk via Zoom today.
This is exactly why we're doing this on Zoom today. Right? If you won't say, just forget it. After a time, Dao Wu. So Dao Wu, keep in mind, Dao Wu is the teacher, right? In this, Dao Wu passed away. He died. Jian Yuan sought out another teacher named Xishuang, Zhizhuang, and asked him the same question. Zhizhuang responds, you can't say he's alive and you can't say he's dead. So the second time around, when he hears the same response from a different teacher, Jian Yuan was suddenly enlightened. Another day, he was found carrying, this is Jian Yuan. Another day, he was found carrying a hoe and pacing up and down the temple hall. Look at him there. He's in the hall where the sutras are recited, and he's pacing up and down with a hoe on his back. And his teacher comes and asks him, "What are you doing?" "I'm searching for the master's relics." And the teacher responds, "Flooding waters reach far and wide. White waves inundate the heavens. What relics are there to look for?" And then kind of the commentary or the conclusion about this is, when we are alive, life is everything to us. As for dead people, death is everything to them. While you are alive, concentrate on living. This way you won't be apprehensive about death. Okay, so that's the story. That's the story, and we're going to look at that story from just a couple of different angles. One of the hindrances to us, I think, getting this particular story is that there's a predominant one is that there's a predominant religious worldview that says that we die and we either go to heaven or hell, right? And so death is fairly final. There's death, and then the body separates from the spirit. The spirit goes up to heaven or goes down to hell, depending on how you lived your life. And so to even ask the question seems kind of might throw us for a little bit of a loop, like dead or alive. Right? Shouldn't we be thinking about where this person's gone? Where's his spirit going off to? Or the other view, the other worldview that dominates in our society is a view from the secular or the scientific sphere that says death is final, right? There's instruments we can tell when the heart stops beating, the brain is dead, we call it dead, right? There's a clear kind of mark off, this person is dead. The same is true for life. Once a baby is born, they're born, that's the beginning, right? Or we can go to conception. Regardless of where you want to place that marker, there's a definite, clear beginning and an end. There's a sharp distinction between life and death. And I want to suggest that's kind of a hindrance to understanding this. In Buddhism, we talk about non-origination. And just to contemplate that word could be a practice for us. Non-origination. That we don't originate. Right? We don't originate. We don't come from somewhere specific. Non-origination. And then there's non-extinction. We don't go somewhere. But what do we do about the reality? This isn't one of the tricky points about this teaching on non-origination is that we can use it to bypass the reality of grief. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful when we're studying something like this that we don't try to use our mind to jump out of real feelings of grief. We got to be careful not to try to bypass any kind of grief that we might be experiencing and use the teaching to think ourselves out of it or philosophize ourselves out of it. Zen is not philosophical in that regards. There's some deep philosophical teachings here, but when it comes to the reality of birth and death, philosophy doesn't get us very far. And we have other emotions that are present in us, and we have to be careful about using Zen philosophy as a means to kind of overcome. I don't even, that word overcome grief is problematic to say we're overcoming it. On the other hand, though, we need to study this and kind of grapple with this question of birth and death. How do we see it? We see the world in a certain way, let's be honest, but is that the only way to see it? So there's a story in another book called the Eihei Koroku. That's Eihei is for Eihei Dogen and his extensive record. And Dogen quotes this story in his extensive record. The extensive record is full of short Dharma talks that he gave, and this is a Dharma Hall discourse that was given by Dogen, that was requested by Bhikshuni Daishin. Do you know what a Bhikshuni is? Anybody know what a Bhikshuni is?
Yoga?
Say it louder.
Something related to yoga?
No, but the other word that might help is there's bhikshus and there's bhikshunis.
A female nun?
Exactly, yes. A bhikshuni is a female monk. So bhikshu does not mean somebody with big shoes. So a bhikshu is a monk, a male home leaver. A male home leaver is a bhikshu, and a bhikshuni, you have that suffix at the end, ni means female. So it's telling us in this particular discourse by Dogen, it's telling us that there was a nun present in the assembly of Dogen when he was saying this. And Eishin is the name of this nun. So this is a Dharma Hall discourse requested by Bhikshuni Daishin for her late father. So apparently this particular nun had just lost her father, or maybe just lost her father, but in any case, her father had passed away, and she requested Dogen Zenji to say some words about this passing away. And that tells you right there that even if you're a home leaver and you might understand the highest Buddhist philosophy, we don't escape from the reality of birth and death. We can't just overcome it. Like, otherwise, why would there be a need for Eishin to request a Dharma talk on the occasion of the passing away of her father? It's something to consider. So Dogen Zenji's Dharma talk is this. He says, penetrating one Dharma is penetrating 10,000 Dharmas. We just have to do one thing, right? We don't have to change our activity. We just do one thing wholeheartedly and the whole universe shows up, right? Whether it's washing the dishes or sweeping the floor, carrying the children, carting the children from one event to the next, right? Going to work, writing a report, whatever it is. Cutting the grass, mulching, sweeping. One activity, one Dharma is penetrating 10,000 Dharmas. We need to kind of develop that eye to see, oh, wait a minute, the whole universe is supporting me in this very moment. It's not like I have to do something different. Knowing the three elements of heaven, humanity, and earth is knowing all Buddhas. This was the predominant Asian worldview, the worldview of heaven, humanity, and earth. The three kind of levels here, whereas heaven is referring not to a place where somebody goes after they die necessarily. Heaven is referring to that conscious, or the impulse of conscience that exists not just within each one of us, but in the universe, right? That the universe has what's called a mandate. There's a way of living And it's the job of humanity to synchronize or harmonize with that way, to harmonize one's way on earth with heaven. So you have this heaven, humanity, and earth. That's the worldview. And people spend their lifetime trying to discern what is the will of heaven, that I can create a sense of peace right here in my world, whether that be within my own heart, within my own family, or within the wider community that's around me. That's the predominant worldview. And Dogen Zenji says that this is knowing all Buddhas, right? Knowing heaven, humanity, and earth is knowing all Buddhas. As I say, he equates them, he makes them equal. So it is said, knowing benefaction is repaying benefaction. I mean, here, another important Asian worldview about appreciating and respecting one's ancestors. So here's the nun, Daishin. She wants to pay respects to her father. It's so natural to want to do that. We are all here because, for better, regardless of what we think about our parents, we're all here because of them. And for just that fact, we could express our gratitude. And if we have a really hard time with our parents, we can go back a generation to our grandparents or to our great grandparents. We know we've got some ancestors there backing us. And when we acknowledge the ancestors, we're really acknowledging some part of ourself that is always present with us. They might seem dead. These ancestors might be no longer with us, but every fiber of our being has their DNA. We share it with them. They're very much within us. Knowing benefaction is repaying benefaction, right? Repaying the debt that we owe to our ancestors. Now Dogen Zenji says, I remember that Zhen Yuan at a donor's house on a condolence visit with his teacher, Dao Wu, rubbed the casket and asked, alive or dead? Now, see, Dogen weaves in this philosophical element into his Dharma Hall discourse, just so beautiful. First, he's recognizing that sincerity. There's a sincerity here. And now he's starting to play with it a little bit. Dao Wu said, I don't say alive, I don't say dead. Chen Yuan asked, why won't you speak? Dao Wu said, I won't say. So he closes the story there. He doesn't actually go into the part about the student beating up his teacher. He closes it right there. And then he says, alive or dead? All Buddhas of the 3 times don't know it is. Dead or alive? Cats and white oxen do know it is. Not saying alive, not saying dead. As of old, an iron ox lies down in smoke and sand. Why don't you speak? The tongue is too long and the mouth is too narrow. I won't say. A tiger and a tiger become intimate for the first time. Buddhas don't know it. We say, not knowing is most intimate. As soon as we say we know, we're off the mark. We've left the realm of non-duality and we've entered fully into dualistic thinking, which is what faith and mind, what we chanted this morning, is all about. So if you understand that, you're in good shape. Cats and white oxen know it. In other words, the ignorant The ignorant know it. They say it's got to be this. It's this, right? They're dead. In reality, we think, let's put aside philosophical thinking. We can philosophize on this until we're dead, and it's not going to do us any good. The reality is that we do know it. We're the cats and the white oxen. We think in terms of dead, alive, either or. What if you were to say, I don't know, or I can't say? Not forget about I don't know. I can't say it. I can't say it. Would you not get beat up if you were to say, I can't say? If not by someone else, perhaps by your own mind. Our own mind will beat us up for saying, I don't know. I would think about how you feel when you are grieving the loss of somebody. Think about how that feels. The gift of grief is that we are thrust into what we call in Zen thusness. We're thrust into that space. If we can settle into that grief, it's just there. It's just so present. Life it seems like a dream. But this ignorant monk that asks the question, he's a part of our consciousness. He's a part of us. He's there in us. Don't think the monk is somebody out there. The monk is inside of our own mind. This ignorant monk is inside of our own head saying, dead or alive, which one? It's got to be one or the other. Maybe he's testing his master. Can you really say there's no birth and no death, no non-origination? I've been studying this. It doesn't make sense. This guy looks like he's dead to me. Can't you say that he's dead? Right? That's our conscience. That's our consciousness speaking. That's us. And the Zen response, I can't say. There's some part of us, it's at war. We're at war with ourselves there. We're at war with ourselves. And then there's this beautiful saying by Dogen. He says, not saying alive, not saying dead. As of old, an iron ox lies down in smoke and sand. Get this imagery, an iron ox. In other words, a powerful beast, the representative of the Buddha, the iron ox, immovable or extraordinarily powerful and immovable, iron, lays down in smoke. Who wants to lay down? Have you ever been in a smoke-filled room? What happens? Right? Your eyes get all watery. This is one way to perhaps think of grief. The eyes water. That's what happens. This isn't about bypassing grief. It's about sitting in it, sitting down in smoke and sand. Who wants to lay down in sand without a blanket underneath them? It gets all itchy, right? Nobody wants to sit in sand. The iron ox lays down in smoke and sand. Our Zen practice is to settle into this smoke and settle into this sand. He's speaking to a nun who just recently lost her father. Sit in it. And he doesn't say sit with it, sit with the pain. He says, look, think of the imagery here. An iron ox lays down. He makes it, he allows our minds to take some imagery in. An iron ox lays down in smoke and sand. Okay, now I know the direction to go in. An iron ox lay there. There's some dignity to this. There's some dignity to this grief that I'm experiencing. All right. There's another place where this same story, alive or dead, comes up. It's in the Blue Cliff record. And this particular one has comments by two not ancient but more contemporary Japanese Zen masters, Hakuin and Tenkei. I just want to read you a short bit from the intro. It says, secure, stable, total reality is experienced on the spot. Entering the flow to transform things is undertaken directly. So listen to these words: secure, stable, total reality. This is what we touch when we sit zazen. When we sit in stillness, we can touch that part of ourselves that's always stable. We sit stably and we touch that stability. Who doesn't need that when they're grieving? Our minds can go all over the place. We need that. Secure, stable, on the spot, experienced on the spot. You don't have to change your activity. Sometimes as soon as we sit down, we think, oh, I should be doing something else. On the spot, right here, right now, not someplace else. Entering the flow to transform things is undertaken directly. Be careful. We don't transform anything. The universe enters the flow as the universe through us and transforms. I'd like to close with a short poem. I just wrote this morning, kind of thinking about this here. Daikon, nonin, daiyosho. Yes? Are you dead or are you alive? Dead. Then how are we talking? Daishin? Yes? Are you dead or alive? I can't say. How about you, Sangha? Are you dead or alive? What would you say? Thank you.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
So my question is about the iron ox. Isn't the ox the metaphor for the mind? So does that mean a very strong-willed mind?
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's also a symbol for the Buddha.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I have a question. So it's Ian speaking. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Ian.
So do you have or does Buddhism or Zen have a definition for what life is or death?
Does Zen have a definition for life is?
Yeah.
What life is?
Oh, for what life is. A definition for what life is. Yeah, that's a koan for you right there. What is life? I would just turn it around, like what is life? I mean, we want to grab at it is, we want to fill in the blank, right? That's what the mind wants to do. Life is bop, bop, bop. But I would encourage you to look in the present moment and ask the question, what is this? What is this?
Well, how do I know I'm not dead then?
How do you know you're not dead?
Yeah.
Well, if I was there, I could, let's see, I got this. Right.
You got a stick.
if you were there, I could, if we were in the same room, I'd just give you a little tap and you can tell me if you felt that or not.
This is Pam. I don't know, this question of alive or dead is really interesting to me because I've found that when someone dies and once you go through a period of grief, that on the other side, if you can ever say that it has another side, that person, you begin to feel their life much more and their presence much more. It's as if you're just aware of their life in you and in around you and in the way you think, in the way you act, etc. The way you've been changed by them, perhaps, or even sometimes a palpable sense of presence.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is definitely a potential for all of us. And sometimes when we have unresolved grief, maybe we miss that. We miss that. But entering, I think that's where Zen practice helps to enter into the grief and to experience exactly what you're saying there.
Daishin, this is Brian. How does this relate to reincarnation?
Oh, Brian, that's an interesting question about reincarnation. Yeah, so there is that worldview too within Buddhism. It's just a given in the Buddhist worldview because the Buddhism comes right out of India that takes it for granted that we are we are the result of many thousand reincarnations. But when Buddhism moves into China, they don't have this same worldview of reincarnation. It still gets carried forward to some extent, but I can say I can't say for ancient China, but at least for the modern period, the idea of reincarnation is somewhat downplayed. Of course, that may not be as true in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. But I don't think it's necessary to have a belief in reincarnation to kind of grapple with this idea of alive or dead. Because even if we can see reincarnation as reality, it doesn't give us a ticket out of grief. And of course, if we don't see reincarnation as reality, that doesn't prevent us from grappling with what's being asked here. It's not that the absence of reincarnation is not a challenge to this story, in other words. Yeah. Thanks.
Another question. So you talked about the Asian worldview of heaven and people trying to get it almost sounded like you were talking about what a deity wants. Can you talk more about this view of heaven and that there people are trying to figure out I forgot how you worded it, what it wants or something? Can you talk more about that?
Right. So in this Chinese worldview, there's not a God that's dictating what one should do. There's not somebody personifying God saying this is the way to live. And if you don't do it, you go to hell. And if you do it, you'll come with me to heaven. There's not that. Rather, there is what's called a principle. And that there's a recognition that everything has a order to it. Everything has a kind of there's an order to the cosmos, right? We can see that when we study the universe, we can see what we see is not chaos, we see order. There may be times for chaos present, but there is also this kind of underlying order to the universe. We can see that in the stars, we can see that in the galaxies, but take it back to Earth, we can also see it in the natural world. There's an order, there's a patterning, right? Just as the snail shell goes in a spiral, so does the galaxy. And we see patterns on the physical level of the human body. And there's also patterns like the way the fish move together in one school, patterns the way that the birds fly together in a flock. There's patterns there. And heaven is referring to that principle that is inherent in all of existence, both in animate and inanimate beings, in the sentient beings and the non-sentient beings, in rocks and pebbles, as well as in butterflies and alligators, right? There is a principle that's in effect there. And on a human level, we need to actually align ourselves with that principle. We have this gift of, for better or curse, of consciousness, that we're aware of what's going on around us. We're aware of birth and death. Whereas most of existence, it's not a big thing. Yeah, you will try to get away from danger, but we don't find other sentient beings thinking actively about their demise, whether it be in 80 years or in 2 weeks. We don't find, but we do find that amongst humans. Right? So our job, we get confused by that. And heaven is a principle to align ourselves with, to join in with that patterning, to make in our life a kind of joining in with that pattern. This is what it means to be one with the Tao. Right? So how do we live in accordance with the Tao, with the way of heaven? That's a question that preoccupied Chinese civilization for centuries, and even still somewhat today. How do we align our lives, not just our individual lives, but also our family lives, our communal lives? How do we align so that we see we are in harmony with the bigger rhythms, the bigger patterns of the planet, of the cosmos? And that is that's my understanding of what heaven is about. There's a principle that we're, on some level, we're aware. We are aware that we can do better, that we can do a better job in aligning ourselves with that.
Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
You have time for one more question? So,
if I may, I was just wondering that with our current work around Nonan's passing, and you just now having conversation with him and leading into ceremony on October 1st for that, we'll be also going straight away into a season recognized through many cultures as having this blurring the lines between life and death, whether it's Halloween or Samhain or Dia de los Muertos. I was wondering if you had any particular reflections on for us to carry with into that season of still finding these presences, around, not actually sure how to phrase this question, that broad cultural tendency to acknowledge the presence of death and those we've lost still kind of among us, if that makes any sense as a question.
Right. So you're saying that our culture as a whole does acknowledge death in this way, right? Through things like Halloween and this kind of a blurring of the boundaries between the living and the dead. So there is that, I think. I think, is that kind of what you're saying? And how do we
Yeah, I'm sorry, my question was rather muddled. It's just occurring to me that in addition to, ceremonies, memorials, funerals like that, we also have these sort of broader cultural traditions where particularly this time of year we recognize life and death as not being so distinct, and I was just asking for any reflections you might have on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's these are important celebrations, important holidays. Halloween is, to me, is a very spiritual time, and you have All Souls Day right afterwards. I think there's a very spiritual opportunity. I mean, we kind of denigrate it maybe to getting candy, and it's a children's holiday, but I don't think it is. I think we should see it as more than that, at least for Halloween. And certainly, yeah, just sometimes reading about the poetry of Zen Master Ryokan, for example. He talks about fall and autumn, and the falling of the leaf. It falls down, and as it's falling, it goes from one side to the other, to one side to the other. And so it's a symbol of living in these two worlds of the ultimate and the relative. Right? Just as the leaf falls, we live in both of these worlds. And I think actually it's really hard for us to grasp that truth in ordinary consciousness. So yeah, just the more that we can, well, if we can't apply ourselves, Zen gives us an opportunity to look at this, right? When we sit zazen, when we study Buddhism, listening to a Dharma talk, it gives us an opportunity to kind of put our minds in this direction, and that's good. And then we go back to our life, and we might forget it all. But life itself also has a way to introduce it to us as well. And the more we can remain open to that possibility, then we'll get reminders from life itself as well. Yeah.
You need to speak up.
Yeah. So do you have time for one more question?
Yeah.
Okay. So near the beginning of your Dharma talk, you mentioned non-origin and non-extinction. How do you know those are true, and what exactly is not originating and not going extinct?
Yeah. So I'm not so worried about. I mean, if you wanted, you could, if you want to get into the whether it's true or not, probably going into the Tibetan tradition, and they'll philosophically explain that. But for me, it's not really necessary to philosophize on that as much as to experience it. There's something about that term non-origination that goes completely against the grain of the way that I think most people think. And so I find value in non-origination because it highlights the fact that we don't think in that way. And in Zen, you only have you can't have one without the other. That's how duality works. So if you're going to have birth and death, you've got to have the opposite, no birth and no death. Those two are a pair. You can't have one without the other. One can only be seen because the other exists. That's if you want proof, that's where I'd go with that. You can only know birth and death because there's no birth and no death. You can't know birth and death if you don't know no birth and no death. Because you only know something is black because of its opposite, white. You only know something is high because of its opposite, low. You only know something is good because of its opposite, bad. You only know something is subject to birth and death because of its opposite. There's no birth and no death.
Just like a good Zen master, you confused me.
I'm okay. As you know, I want to give others a permission to leave if they need to, but happy to.
Hi, I'm Brooke. It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Brooke.
I know I guess, viewpoint on soulmates in Buddhism.
Soulmates.
What do you mean by soulmates?
Do Buddhists believe in soulmates? Or...
Like in a romantic relationship? you mean?
No, just soulmates in general.
Just
Two
soulmates.
souls that are
No.
meant to find each other.
Okay.
There's a story about two soulmates. I forget the name. See, there's a story about this in the Buddhist lore about a young woman who loses her soul. She's brought up her father. She's brought up by her father, and her mother passes away early, and she makes friends with this boy, and the two of them really they get along well as little children, and then as they become adolescents and young adults, they become enamored of each other, and they then decide together that they want to marry. And Seijo is her name. Seijo loses her soul. So Seijo, the young woman, goes to her father and says, you know, she's about to tell him that she wants to marry this other person, and her father tells her, I've just arranged a marriage with you with this other person. You know, he's comes from a good background. His family is wealthy. It's a good match. And her father's not in the best of health, so he wants to do his duty of taking care of his daughter and making sure she's married to the right person. But meanwhile, Seijo, she couldn't tell her father then of her intentions, and she just became so sick. Well, when her boyfriend learned of what Seijo's father had intended, he couldn't bear to live in the same city as her. And so that night he gets on a boat and starts to paddle away. But lo and behold, he sees on the shore against the moonlight Seijo. And Seijo is beckoning him, and he's so delighted. And he picks her up on the boat, and they go to another town to live, and they make a family. And several years later, Seijo says to her husband of her dreams, I want to go back and visit my family. I want to show them our children. This isn't quite a natural thing for a mother to want to, you know, show their children or their parents. And so her husband agrees to it, and it's, of course. So they're starting on their way back to the father's house, and when they get there, her husband says, let me talk with your father and explain everything and explain what happened. And Seijo says, okay, I'll stay in the boat and wait. So the husband goes to the father and knocks on his door and says, he starts to explain, and the father's aghast. He says, what do you mean? All of this time, Seijo, that you've been away, all of this time that you've been away, Seijo has been laying in bed sick. She hasn't gotten up for several years. And the husband, of course, is perplexed by this. And then the Seijo, so the father goes to the Seijo that's sleeping in the bed and starts to tell her this story, and she gets up. She wakes up, and then the Seijo that's in the boat approaches the house, and the two Seijos meet and become one. So I don't know if that helps with your question about soulmates, but you know, finding true love requires, I think, some deal of heartbreak and heartache. Even if we find who we think is our soulmate, there's still work to be done. Yeah.
Thank you, Daishin.
All right. Thank you.
The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
The
many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road.
Dharma gates are about countless, vowing to wake to them all.
Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all.
Buddha's way is all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Buddha's way is all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Just a couple of announcements. Next Saturday is our introduction to Zen class. Might be a class to sign up for. I see we have another truck.
We do.
And Smith. So the sign up deadline is Tuesday the 6th. Go online and sign up for that. Also, the following Saturday, I think that Daishin will be back with us, and we have scheduled a zazen kai for Saturday. That's extended sit and some oryoki formal eating and other retreat sort of situation, and that'll be from 7 to 4. So you can sign up also online for that. Anybody else can think of anything I've forgotten?
Pam, just one thing real quick. Maybe we can talk briefly after everybody departs here.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just leave the Zoom on. Who wants to return our cushions and then we'll bow.
Thank you, Daishin.
Thank you, Daishin.
you. It's also really nice outside, so you want to go out.
Yeah, I got a buzz. I said, keep on cutting. I'll go through the second half. Just, I love how. Yeah, I'm going on a trip. I don't have, I mean. Yeah, I'm going back in for 8 or 9 days, and I just don't have to do it. No, you have to get your office. Actually, this is why, one of the reasons why I'm going, there's bare boxes at each campsite, 12 miles, or that toilet, so. Set with toiletries, and I don't have to hang my food in a tree, so yeah, it's gonna be a lot easier. That makes it a little bit nicer. Yeah.
Hi there, I didn't know who all you wanted in the conversation.
Oh, yeah, it's not a private conversation. I just wanted to flag. I could have sent you an email, but since we're here right now, I was just thinking on Friday, when I'm there. I'm wondering if that wouldn't be an opportunity to have a group from either the high school or the college come.
Oh, in September?
Yeah.
He has already contacted me for a date. So I think he does it toward the end of his semester.
Oh, okay.
But I could check with some other teachers at the high school.
Yeah.
So, and see, yeah, if we want to line up something like that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think because Friday's so it's tricky. I have to I'll be there. This is a Friday where I'll be there already in the morning, so there's more
Right.
flexibility, I think. But later in the semester might work just as well. But I don't know. It's just something that we could consider for something to do.
Okay, yeah, the guy from UNO, he has to do it on a Tuesday night because that's when his class is.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, but we should talk about that and whether you'd be interested in zooming in. for that.
Right. Certainly, I could zoom in on a Tuesday evenings aren't. I don't have anything Tuesday evening, so that would work.
I don't remember the exact date, but he did, last time he came, he brought two teachers, one from I believe, a community college, and the other from high school. So maybe I'll touch base with him and see if I can contact them and see if they have any students that'd be interested in coming by. That'd be great.
Okay, great.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. I'm sure we'll be in touch about a lot of things. Oh, I started putting together a kind of a program for Nolan's thing that would have kind of line out the ceremony and then have the sutras also included in it. So I didn't know if you have the long sutra yet.
I have a link for it that I can send to you.
Oh, that's great.
But let me I'm glad you're bringing this up. I need to talk with Tejo and ask. She hasn't gotten back to me on that yet, so I'm just kind of not sure where she's at, if she's looked at it or if she's revising it in some.
It's it's in draft form. So
Okay.
it's on the computer. So
Yeah. Let me send something to Tejo in the next day or so and see where she's at with things.
okay, sounds good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Take care, Pam.
Have a good day.
You too.